So one of the negative effects is that, our literacy rate is going to drop. That such shall not be complete as expected. So there are serious challenges to the right to education because of the ongoing closure. So what needs to be done then? It requires a very serious engagement, some constructive engagement. But there is another aspect to it that I need also to bring out. What about those who have been providing education through private initiatives? For example, we know there are private schools, they have private entrepreneurs who, because government cannot actually ensure access to education for all, have, filled the gap. They have filled the gap. And apparently, as you know, right now, because their schools have been closed, they had loans. What is happening? They can no longer afford to run their private schools. The Minister of Finance the other day, in what I thought was a very unfortunate statement, was calling upon them to sell their schools so that they can pay the loans. And I asked myself, what exactly was the intention? The intention was to support the educational system, to fill a gap that, government couldn't fill. So when you say they should go and sell their schools to pay the loans, I feel that was a very unfortunate statement from a high-ranking officer of government. So it showed some degree of insensitivity and failure to appreciate the importance of education provided by private initiatives. So all in all, because I was given 15 minutes from what I see, in the UN, it's very strict. By now, you would have raised the red flag. If they say 15 minutes, it means 15 minutes. So I can't go beyond that. I just want to thank you, and I hope we can have a constructive engagement. Once again, have a wonderful afternoon. It was a pleasure to be here. I look forward to working closely with you in the near future. I thank you, and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us give Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana, sir, a round of flowers. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your wonderful insight on the right to education and subsequent efforts of its denial. If we all had Dr. right, he said, education is a precondition. He quoted, education is a precondition for human rights. And according to our theme tonight, we are looking at COVID-19 and education, a path of recovery, right? And we all realized that when Uganda went through its first, or when it realized its first lockdown, that was in March 20, is it 2020? Yes, 2020. COVID-19 has impacted drastically on the education sector. I come from the northern part of Uganda, Gulu to be specific, and statistics show that northern Uganda apparently has over 1,000 cases of teenage pregnancies. What is causing this? It's the lockdown that we are in, because children are not going to school. Girls are looking for marriage, are actually looking for their partners. Just like Doctor said, the appetite for education has disappeared. So it's really a saddening fact that we find people below the age of 15 already in their homes and they're pregnant. So, Doctor, thank you so much for your insights. And I hope that we will have more fruitful deliberations as we try to fight. I know we cannot fight it single-handedly, but when we advocate for this, we shall also see that schools open someday and we get back to school. So without waste of time, we are going to have another panelist. This time it's a lady, and you know when a lady is going to speak, it's like a whole nation is going to speak. So we are going to have our Superintendent of Police, Miss Caroline K, who is representing the Acting Commissioner under the Child and Protection Department, who will take us through the role of schools or institutions in nurturing of children or students, focusing on criminality and mental health, and how COVID-19 has affected this role and possible ways forward. Miss Caroline K, who who serves under the Uganda Police Force, will be joining us. She'll be joining us online. She's not here present with us, but ideally we should give her, I would say, mighty ear, because the topic she's going to tackle is one that affects us directly, because we are here and we have studied degree courses of 3 years. We're even more than the doctors now, about 5 years in the same course. So really, this is really a question that needs serious handling. So without wasting time, before Miss Caroline takes up her space, I would like us to wear our masks. Let's not forget, we are still in the COVID period. I'm going to wear mine too immediately after this, so that we prevent further cases of maybe infecting other people. I may be the one carrying it, so let us wear our masks. It's still a sensitive period. And Miss Caroline, wherever you are, you're very welcome to this session this afternoon.
Hello everyone, good afternoon to you all. I don't know whether you're getting me. Hello, are you getting me? Hello, are you getting me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Carol.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. As the moderator has said, I'm going to look at the effects of COVID on students and people, looking at the security point of view. They have already introduced me. Maybe I can say I'm a lieutenant of police, General Caroline, and I head the family unit for Kampala Metropolitan Police. However, I'm standing in for the acting commissioner. So as the former facilitator has said, police is not any different from other organizations or institutions. And we have received a number of cases from the time COVID started. One of them is that now that the children are seated at home, we have experienced a lot of tests that have increased coming out of the children. And this is the reason that most of them have engaged in child labor to look for the livelihood and what to eat in their homes. Some parents have also lost the source of income. So they resort to sending children to go on the streets to go and look for something to eat. And even when they don't send them, they will always find their way as long as they are hungry to go and look for something. And you see that it has brought a lot of issues, even to the neighbors, because a child will not go and steal from somewhere very far. They will always steal from within and something that they know where it is. Also, there has been an increase in the number of sick children. Of course, children that are no longer going back to school, the livelihood. Some of them have got issues with their parents. Of course, they are tired of the situation. They don't even know what is happening. So they resort to this, and they can't see where they can be independent, and they resist. And if you have those who have noticed, some time back, I think before COVID, if you would pass via Wandegea, you would hardly see a street child. But as I talk of that, they have come back to the street. But what is the reason is children are looking for where to eat, what to eat, and who can help. nursing home, that is the age of 16 to 70 people eventually are looking for, and even 16 and 14, where children eat naturally back what to eat and who can children have come back, and it is a result of COVID now that most of them are not going back to school. There has also been a trend that at age of 15 to 70 eventually are looking for, and even 12, 13 and 14 morning, and you can wear children eat naturally back what I has gone, who can not have come back, and it is a result of COVID now that most of them are under of late. Apostle has also been a trend that at age of 30 to 70 eventually are looking for, and even 12, 13 and 14 morning, and you can wear children eat naturally back what I has gone, who can not have come back. It is a result of most of the disappearance of most of them and of my heart theory. Apostle has also been a trend that at age of 30 to 70 eventually are looking for, and even you can wear children eat naturally back what I has gone, who can not have come back. And disappearance of most of them and of my heart theory. Apostle has a girl of 14 years getting lost. This is a child that knows the names of the parents, maybe probably the telephone contact, and then the parents and this time to the police to find out where that child has gone. We have also had cases of missing children are referred to this and so and even you can see that what I have done and disappeared the child and my father has a girl of 14 years getting lost. Realize that when they know the children who are lost, the child that knows the language of the parents, where are the telephone contacts, and the language of the house, and what of all, these are the parents' children. They will tell you that I'm studying from this and this school, but what is happening, the parents all know that their children are also tired of the situation. We have also had their can no longer go to little children, and they resort to looking for and so where they can what I tired, and some of the children are not so happy at little children, and they resort to looking for where they But we work together with other stakeholders to ensure that those who have reported cases get justice. That is all I had to say, unless if there is any question or any contribution. Thank you so much.
We can all agree she deserves more than that.
for Ms. Caroline Shemerero. First, I think we all realize that the efforts towards reviving education do cross a lot of boundaries, in as far as the mental health of the children, to criminality, to all sorts of offenses. And I think that is why it is very paramount for us to be having this discussion at this particular moment. And I want to thank so much Ms. Caroline Kushemerera for being a part of this discussion and for all the efforts that they have furthered as police in this particular campaign. So I want to welcome at this particular moment the lady that was referred to as the Lady of Art, Miss Alice Alaso. But before she comes onto the floor, I'd like to recognize the presence of Mr. Professor Dr. Mpezemigo, the KIU Vice Chancellor, who is going to speak to us at a later time. He has joined us online. I think we can give him a round of applause. So several people like him have graced this event, and I would like to thank him very much, and several of us who have given it this time to be a part of this event. So, like we've already realized, the duty of opening up schools and the importance of education is one that crosses a lot of boundaries. It's important to recognize the efforts of every single institution in as far as this fight is concerned, which is why Ms. Alice Alaso is going to lead in the role of National Education Institution Administrator Bodies in the recovery of education sector in Uganda amidst the post-COVID-19. I want to welcome you. Thank you.
How much time do I have here? Thank you very much, the President of UDPC, and all of you, organizers of this meeting and participants, and my fellow panelists. Livingstone and I, Dr. Livingstone and I go a long way in doing advocacy. And so it's a joy to meet again in this kind of forum. I am particularly excited about the moderators of this forum. I just felt good, listening to all these young ladies articulate issues, and I just felt this country has a great future. And I am also very grateful to you because by doing this alone, you are showing us that you know what should be happening to this country and what you want it to be looking into. So all these ideas of let the youth sit by and watch as the elderly drive the thing cannot apply here. You really are very committed to the destiny of this nation, and we are very, very grateful. I am not sure that I will be able to do a good job in terms of the administrators of these institutions and what they can do. But first, let me just say to you that besides being a political leader and an active one at the Alliance for National Transformation, I am a parent, so I have so many children at home, more than 10 sitting at home. I don't know what to do with them. The whole place is stuck. You don't know that, this, what, and the other. They are all around. And then, so I'm a parent in the same dilemma like any other parent. But also, too, professionally, I am a teacher. And my teaching background has gone absolutely wrong. And it is not wrong for now only. It is wrong for today, and it is going to be wrong for the next 10 to be sorting out this situation we are living in. And so, talking about institutions, talking about what they should do, first I think that they have not done us justice. They are not being very fair to all of us by this continued lockdown of institutions of learning. I like the presentation the in-depth insights that Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana has already given to us. And that informs us about really why we should be able to open up our institutions of learning and have students and learners processed. But let me say a few thoughts that I have before I make one or two comments on what I think could be done. First, prior to COVID-19, we had serious issues with our education system. And we kept crying about the relevance of our education system, the quality, the high dropout rates. So where we are now, if the world is discussing COVID and its effects on education, we are starting on a very wrong footing already, totally disadvantaged by our own negligence of that sector prior to COVID-19. We had a very high dropout, and especially among the girl children, and now it is just compounded. You can't talk about, I was shocked when the Minister of Education herself said over 6,000 students who had enrolled for USCE were unable to show up to do the final exam. Now, those are the ones who have paid registration fees. How about those that were in P3, P2, P1? How many of them will show up? So we had problems there. Then we also had problems with even the delivery itself, because we are relying partially on private sector and then partially on the public sector. And now the private sector is of course worst hit, and Dr. Sewanyana already pointed out those issues. So my first thoughts about this discussion is a question of leadership in the management of a crisis. That's how we are discussing it. We need to contextualize it. It is a crisis in the management of COVID-19. Two, then if we have leadership, then it is the lack of foresight in the management of COVID-19. Because we can choose to deal with three parameters here. One, we can take the global approach and say, what is the rest of the world, the UN fraternity, what are they saying about education? UNICEF and UNESCO have already said, open up education institutions. Let the children, let the learners learn. So why aren't we opening up in Uganda? Okay, we can drop that. We can also come a little local and say, what is happening at the region? At the region, in Kenya, children are going to school. Ugandan children at the border in Malaba get into a bus and cross, into a border and cross, and they come back and they are part of Uganda. In Rwanda, children are studying. So then it is lack of foresight, because we should be able to take best practices in the region. But thirdly, and more locally, we should have enough innovations to help us. But let me address the local aspect. We cannot treat education as though everybody is the same age in our school system. So we have nursery. You can say those ones will cry when they go to school for putting on masks. And then you have people in primary. Why are we having university students at home? For goodness sake, why? In fact, anybody from senior 5, why are we having them at home? These fellows, even at home, are going to the shops. They are wearing their masks. They are above 18. Why are we having medical students at home? For goodness sake, they should be learning how to fight COVID-19. Why are we having final year students at home? These are adults. They rotate from home already. So there is no excuse even locally, except probably for the COVID economics. Because you know COVID, the more you lock down people, the more money you get from IMF and World Bank. That is the truth. So I want us to also reflect on the fact that if you draw the map of Uganda, I'm a teacher of geography. And so drawing that map takes me like 1 second. But you need to look at this country. The northern part of the country, the one that is up there, from West Nile, you can draw a line across and then you reach the river and then you bring it to eastern Uganda and remain around Teso, perhaps Bugisu, those areas that suffered the war. When they suffered the war, they lost a generation because the children were either in IDP camps or something like that. So there's a generation blackout. And then you come to Luero here. Their parents did not go to school, so the young people did not go to school. It's a very complex situation that nobody should even try to play around with. So anyway, here is what I think. That if we had opportunity at the Alliance for National Transformation, we took our time and gave proposals, which I am happy to outline. We have outlined very practical approaches to the reopening of schools. One, creative school programming. So people can be in school in the morning, another group in the afternoon. This one's on Saturday, the other one's on Sunday afternoon. We've also outlined creative spaces. You can take some to a PAG church and take some to the mosque and take some to, you can create some in the field. That's how children in Kenya are studying. They are not locked down, so you can maximize. We have outlined compression of the curriculum. There are things that we give too much time. And the technocrats in the universities, in the Ministry of Education, can compress these matters so that we do not have to lose 2 years. We have outlined a new assessment mode. So we think that you can assess students cumulatively. I think this is going on, I'm not very sure, but I think it's going on in the UK now. That you do not have to wait and sit people on an exam again because of this. You just have to use predictions from their earlier performance and then project them and they move forward in the education system. Because right now in my house, I think I have somebody who is supposed to have been either in P6 or P7 or S1. I don't know which class they are supposed to be in. But anyway, they are there. And then I have one who was supposed to be, I think, in S5, but maybe she's now in S6. But I don't know. I think Piloya knows some of these fellows I'm talking about. You know, it is terrible. They are there and we don't know. So, unless something is deliberately done to unclog the system, friends, we have a disaster awaiting in this country. So those are our proposals. Let me conclude because I don't want to go into a detail of create shifts or whatever. We've already talked about them. Everybody knows. I really don't fully understand the motivation of the Uganda government. Why ministers will have their children in international schools. And then they say community learning for my nephew's kid in the village. And in that community learning, their whole sub-county has only one textbook and nobody is studying. I was talking with the chairman of Terego. We met. And he told us this thing is not happening. But there is so much hype, about 73 billion into learning materials in Ministry of Education. Nobody is learning in the villages. And so, for the members of parliament, their children are in international schools. It is those people who are poor. And Dr. Sewanyana told us this inequality gap is going to find us. It's going to deepen, it's going to worsen. I used to tell people, by the way, moderator, I am a politician and a teacher, so you have to show me when to stop. Okay, I used to tell people, if you neglect the children of northern Uganda, they will find you in Kololo. They will be standing at the gates as you enter your houses. So you neglect them at your own peril. I told them when I was in parliament. I am telling people now, leaders, you don't open schools now and we get those children reabsorbed. We propose a tracking mechanism. You don't get the children, the learners reabsorbed in school, you're going to have a crisis. We will come and stand at your gates. And that would be a real disaster. Private schools mean closing out learning spaces. I saw somewhere they've turned them into woodwork workshops. They've turned them into lodges. They've turned them into this, and there is massive unemployment. It shocks me how the managers of this country are lacking foresight. That you create all this unemployment, you create all this literacy, and you think you'll be comfortable in Nakasero. You will not be comfortable. You will not be comfortable with these young people. Already many of them are unemployed. And then now you're creating another group that is either half educated or I don't know what they want. Students, children, I don't know how to call you now. You're not graduates of anything. You are not illiterates about anything. You are just hanging in there. And you know, when we sell our gardens to educate the children, we count. We say after 3 years, this one will now come and buy the other garden for us to grow cassava. Now, where are you? It is tricky. Lastly, let me tell the apologists, because I even see some of them on the chat box. Some people are saying, be patient. Be patient how? The arcades are open. Be patient how? The buses are moving. The taxis are moving. I came here. If I wanted to come up to Bugolobi by public means, I would have come. Is COVID tied in that university lecture hall? Is it tied in the senior 5 class? Where is it? The statistics even show us from the Ministry of Health that the most affected in terms of infections are not these young people. It is the adults. So your body immune systems are very helpful. We would like to see the schools open. So whoever is in charge, my thoughts for you are already outlined. There are very practical ways in which we can reopen. If I were in charge of this country, all universities would be open now, because these are adults. Even if you lock them at home, they are going to Nakawa in the market. Aren't they meeting people? If I were in charge of this country, and pray that I get in charge of this country. Pray seriously. It is the lack of people at the center. At the Alliance for National Transformation, we call it people first. You have to think with the people first mentality every other day. Then you push every policy with the people first. That is what will help this country. I thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Miss Alice Alaso. This time it's me clapping. Thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for those very incredible words. I must say that my literature teacher taught me one very valuable literacy technique, which he called satire, where someone manages to be very funny and humorous and yet trying to vindicate a very important subject, and I want to appreciate you for using it very well. Thank you. So the lady has spoken very, very impressively. I don't think I need to add anything, which is why I will not. So like I had already stated, this fight captures a lot of people from a lot of backgrounds, and we're glad to have listened from a teacher, a parent, and a politician all in one. Now we are going to listen from Mr. Musiri David. Mr. Musiri David is going to be a representative of NUP in this particular forum, which most of you might not know, but is National Unity Platform. Having emerging voices of young people in political seats and listening to them talk about alternative strategy towards the recovery of the education sector from COVID-19 and its effects. Let's give him a round of applause, please. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you so much for being so beautiful. Yeah. I think I will start by introducing myself once again. Musiri David is my name. The other name I'm called Voji. Nice to meet you, Dr. Sewanyana. You inspire us, just like Mama Alice Alaso. You inspire nations. You're a real mother. Thank you so much for coming. And everyone around, In NUP, I am not only representing, but I'm acting head of institutions in NUP, acting. But in addition to that, I am also a victim of circumstance. I'm a student at Makerere University doing Bachelor of Commerce, external, meaning that we are the victims. Maybe we would be now up there in the field, but we are still at campus. I just want to arrest fears because I have a terrible background about the education system. Ever since I joined as a student and as also an activist. For those of you that respect and know HOSA, you know where it is now. Mama, you know, it is now a state operative. There is nothing you can do. There is nothing you can give them as a proposal and it reaches anywhere. Therefore, my prayer is one. I only pray that UDPC may not in the next days in the news being amongst the list that cannot operate in this country called Uganda. And I know this is not new. The people of Uganda know this. Just like most of institutions have been closed, it is just food for thought. I am not saying that it is going to happen, but we should be keen in whatever we do. As I said, I have a little bad background about education. You know, as Mama also said, it has not just started with COVID. By the way, COVID is just taken by this government as maybe a blessing in a disguise. But this government had bad intentions about the education system. Many students have been named, most are crippled, some are brutalized. I know students that are even languishing in Chitaria right now. Like my friend Bosco Serunkuma. He's a student and a former guild president. He has been in Chitaria now for 11 months. But why is he in Chitaria? It's just because he was advocating for the poor to have some space at school. Let me inform you, as I said, I am a victim. We are among the students that led the fees must fall. But that only resulted because we had so many draconian policies that were coming in government institutions. You find a 15% tuition policy in Makerere University. You find 12 weeks policy in Chambogo University. You find 10% tuition increment in Gulu University. You find 12 weeks policy in Chambogo University. When I say that the government has, even now, bad intentions against the education system. We have students that run for their lives, like Spiria Mere. Today she's in Kenya. She went for an asylum. Very beautiful, so articulate, so eloquent. But just because she was a feminist and an activist, a student activist, advocating for students' rights. Therefore, I just want to direct you to this position of ours as NUP. We appreciate that Uganda was once the center of excellence in East Africa. We have precedents set in all records and in history that most presidents of East Africa, at least are either alumni of Makerere University, Chambogo, and other universities. We have a good history about the Obote regime, that at least then there was free education, because as Dr. Livingstone Seranyana said, that education is a right. Even the P4 dropouts, the P2 dropouts, the likes of His Excellency Idi Amin Dada, at least took education as a priority. But this is where we are. Comrades, these are matters of emergency. And I think, as we all know, students have an history. Therefore, I appreciate this organization. I appreciate the dialogue committee that you came up with this. In several countries all over the world, let's start with Sudan. Students overthrew the dictator. Maybe even, that's why I was having that fear that maybe we might not so much open up, but this is the chance we have, let's use it. We might not have another chance, maybe you may not invite us again. But this is the reality. Therefore, this darling, I'm talking about COVID, and true COVID is real. But let me remind you that those of you that are in the ages of my father, because he's from Nsenene clan, Seranyana, and some of us, when we were in our ages, and those classes of P6, P4, P3, we used to study much about the 6 killer diseases, maybe to refresh our minds. Can we interact? What were the 6 killer diseases? Let me give you 2. We had polio, we had measles, yes, marasmus, another one. Yeah, mention them, but let me tell you. Today, I think measles. Do we still have measles? I think even AIDS was so much dangerous. We have a precedent that was set in, I think, Rakai. Those Rakai people were so much affected. But today, people learned how to live with HIV, AIDS. And for us, we say, in some of the alternatives, in this kind of puzzle we are trying to fill every day, because I know very many people are puzzled, and some people have run berserk, they don't know what to do. The situation, as Mama said, it is cumbersome at home. It is chaotic, there is a lot of ruckus. But why don't we say that? Let us, because we must embrace the fact that COVID is here to stay. Then what do we do? Just like we embraced that maybe AIDS was here to stay. Just like we embraced other 6 killer diseases that were here to stay. And today we have vaccinations. For us, ideally, we believe, let us embrace the fact that COVID is here to stay. Then what do we do? What we can do, let us open up schools. And there is much more ways that we can do, all of us together, if we stand together. Because if we say that really, now, COVID is here, it's not going anywhere, and let me tell you, as much as we are still fighting these variants, there are other variants that we know, that even in Uganda we got one. There is a variant from South Africa. There are other variants that are soon coming here. What do we do? Basically, we know what to do, just like Mama said. We can and doctor said we can, if we can at all, because most of the times this government has always, they have always thrown insults to us when we are actually mourning that maybe in the next month we have bought vaccines like the Johnson Johnson, which is a single dose. If they say really, if it is practical, and they are saying they are buying these doses, and these doses, it is a single dose. That means if you buy 9 million, you are going to vaccinate 9 million people. Why don't we take students as a priority? Because we know most of the vaccines can only take those that are from 18 and above. Apart from the American one, Pfizer, that also vaccinate the young ones. But indeed, again, we think about that and we say, now, what is the purpose of locking down these young people? Because even in America, they are not being vaccinated and they are studying. The likes of those from 12 years and below, there is nothing. Their immunity is quite well, just like Mama said it. Even us, we do not even have anywhere in the statistics that in this age group that they are dying. Therefore, we believe that let them open schools. It is the only way, and it is an organized institution where students can easily be vaccinated. Let them be allowed in schools. And maybe let them also strengthen this sick base. Because if we have some characters that are sick, but do we even have medicine in those sick bays and in the health centers that we have on institutions? But it is everywhere in the news that Uganda has gotten at least 1 trillion, at least 1 billion US dollar from IMF. So we should really know that this government is taking us for granted, and maybe it is time we rise and use our voices. Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I thank my colleagues that have been the panelists here and those that are online. Thank you so much. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, our representative from National Unity Platform. I think he deserves another round of applause. Before I proceed, I would like to make a disclaimer that we wrote or invited all political affiliations, but only that representatives from the particular offices did not show up. So someone may begin to wonder why we only have representation from ANT and NUP. So we wrote to all parties. Then also a request to the people in the chat room to kindly send in their questions, because we want to keep within the time scope. Now our next panelist is going to take us through a very rich topic, which is a strategic plan on how individuals who both involuntarily or voluntarily dropped out of the school system due to COVID-19 and its effects can be reincorporated into the education system. Now, you forgive me for the fact that I come from the north and I'm very proud, so pronouncing this name may be a bit hard, but regardless, I'll try. You're very welcome, Sir Professor Dr. M. Let me try. Mpezamigo. I don't know if I really pronounced it well, but I tried. He also doubles as the Vice Chancellor of Kampala International University. You're very welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know whether the host can allow me share a PowerPoint. If not, I can talk to it. Okay, thank you so much. Let me try to share my screen. Okay, I hope you can all see the screen, and I'm really delighted. And I want to thank the young men and women, ladies and gentlemen, who gave me this opportunity to share in this national dialogue under this topic, a plan on how individuals do voluntarily or involuntarily drop out of the school system due to this pandemic and its effects. Indeed, today is a great day about this pandemic and its effects on education. I would like to say that in maybe the next few minutes, I'll be able to share with you a few of the aspects. And I want to thank the previous speakers who have given both political and apolitical opinions. And this is good, especially when you are talking to the youth. And I think we need to be absolutely clear that there are facts of health and life, and also there are facts that we need to put into consideration if we are to continue surviving amidst this great challenge. By the way, the whole idea of a pandemic is not a new one. If you check in history, you find that after every century or so, pandemics actually do appear. We are only glad that in our times, we do have in our hands technology. Science is relatively more advanced. And so for me to try and look at the dropouts of the school system as a result of COVID-19, I'll be able to reflect and remind ourselves
pillar of the economic growth, which is mainly education, the economy, and also try to reflect
pillar of the economic growth, which is on how COVID-19 has actually impacted on our own existential reasons why we should remain in education and continue to advance our goals. Okay. Reflections on COVID. What is happening now at the moment? This was a global occurrence. By the way, by the time Uganda came to know about COVID-19, it had actually hit quite a number of countries. So we belatedly got to know about this, but the control measures that were taken in the first bit of the lockdown, I think did a very good job because we closed the country down. But of course, education was closed abruptly. The causes are still disputed. Actually, this morning I was reading in social media that COVID-19 was born in China. It started in the US, graduated in Spain, and then when it got to Uganda, it became a businessman. I think those are political gimmicks that are always flying around with social media. But generally, there are still disputes. Some are scientific, others are, I think, the geopolitical ramifications that we have in the world, the global politics. However, the impact has been national, international, and global, and COVID-19 doesn't know borders at all. It's actually a big threat to human existence, and this must not be taken for granted. It has got a human impact, a huge impact on human development, and it doesn't matter whether a country is rich or poor. In fact, you know very well that COVID-19 hit hard the mainly developed countries, and one of the reasons is not that they became so reckless, but because their economies allowed allowed them to do global travel, they were able to spread the COVID-19 much faster, and therefore it hit most of them. If you look at our statistics of travel, I mean, we cannot compare with people who book for holidays. They go across Europe, they go to Asia, they go to the States, to Canada, and so while the COVID-19, the people who move so frequently were able to transmit it, and therefore that explains largely, whereas they were advanced in terms of hospitals, in terms of the health systems, there was no way they could actually handle, just because of that widespread as a result of movement and advancement in transportation, flights, trains, others moving by sea. And so all sectors of life have been affected. The religious leaders up to today actually say, is COVID-19 a test from Allah if you are a Muslim, or the Almighty God if you believe in other faiths? It's important that you know from the Ministry of Education and Sports, the main reason why we have strategic plans that roll out is to increase access to quality education, create a critical mass of adequately skilled labor, and also actualize the demographic dividend. In other words, countrywide, we should be in a position to have equitable education, but of quality. So this is the main reason for education sector strategic plan. However, we also know that the purpose of education is actually to prevent dogma from accumulating. And it is mainly defined as the process of turning the ignorance of which one is not aware into the ignorance of which one is aware. So that's really the purpose. So that means if you have a community that is disadvantaged and that does not actually, is not exposed to education, you are bound to get a community that sits in ignorance of which they are not aware. And this can be very, very catastrophic. We should all remember, ladies and gentlemen who are listening and watching me, that Uganda, for example, has a huge percentage of the youth. More than 75% of the population are people who are 30 and below. And that's really a serious matter. No wonder when we talk about 15 million students or people who are school going, seated, that's really like a third of that population. And that's a very big scare if nothing is done to make sure that they get back on the road to education. And actually, the World Bank has said the welfare of a nation, you cannot, for example, as a priority above
the needs for education of its people.
This is a very big statement. However, we all know that health is really what matters. Even if you are you have everything in life, but without health, then you can't enjoy. So education has got an impact on the human development. This you can actually check. Uganda's Vision 2020 has defined pillars of economic growth, and education is one of those that has been highlighted as a crucial mechanism for economic growth. And the reason is very simple.
We produce human capital.
People who go through the education system end up to our main workforce. So this is very important. Now that means if there is a delay in the process, I know that Honorable Alaso actually made the mention of areas that were affected once upon a time by war. If there's that sort of roadblock that prevents a generation from accessing education at any one particular time, recovery requires like fast tracking. So there has to be some interventions that actually drive that agenda to bring. It's just like some of you have actually traveled. When you are about to lose your flight, sometimes if you are lucky and the airport officials and the airline officials allow you, the speed at which they take you through the checkpoints is exactly what you need in case of a delay in education. So we are amassing a challenge, and which is inevitable, definitely, because of the COVID, and I maintain that health is a priority. But then, if the quality of our education is affected in any way, then we can be sure that the quality of our lives is also going to be affected. The education audible, ladies and gentlemen. Good. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so this is the structure of our dichotomy. We have the pre-primary, we have the primary, we have the secondary. This is common knowledge. All of us know this. This is the dichotomy. Now, it is important that you appreciate that the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now looking at the overview. Now we are getting into the gist of the matter. The volumes of people at every level matter a lot. And actually, it's a triangle. The way this is lining is dropping down is the way the population. You start from the big numbers in primary schools, then secondary, then as you go up to the apex, university and other tertiary institutions, you have fewer numbers. But as some of the presenters said, the risk around here, the numbers here, as you progress, you are mainly shaping the human capacity. At this stage, people are specializing, they are doing medicine, engineering, education, and so they are almost getting out of the turn of training. And so it's much easier to deal with this number, and I think that's the very reason why a couple of times actually university out, for example, even recently, the medical students have also been allowed to come back. Those in the health sciences, they have been allowed to come back. So here at this level, we expect that the government, and I think the President, His Excellency, and the Ministry should be in a position to actually allow many more people at this level who can actually manage their affairs. They are able to attend. They also have to take cognizance of the fact that it's up to them. It's their personal responsibility to make sure that they comply with the standard operating procedures. So who are the key stakeholders? I know the organizers wanted so much me to talk about the people who have dropped out. What do we do with them? I want you to know that education is a full cycle. It's an ecosystem. And whereas you as students who are seated, who are not studying, who are halted a bit for now, seem to think that it is only you who are actually having an issue. There are other in the continuity. I always use this example. You have these internal, what I call the internal. You have pupils or students, you have the academic staff, the teachers, the lecturers in universities, you have got parents, the alumni of institutions and so on, the founders of universities and education institutions. But on the external, government has a key stake, communities. Now, if the superintendent, the police superintendent who gave a very good talk about some of the indicators of children staying at home, one of them is theft. You have increased robberies and so on and so forth. Communities are having issues now. That means the community is a key stakeholder, and so they are making noise now and also increasing the pressure. So it's really an ecosystem. All of us are affected, and I want you to think a bit. Honorable Aswal said she has 10 kids at home. When the children are at school, I'm sure if you check your water bill, it is slightly less than when they are at home, especially if you are using flush toilets. And even when it comes to feeding, many parents take things for granted. In this COVID-19, there are some realities that have come to families that look, it's very expensive to have children and maintain them. Now imagine if there is uncertainty for continuity. So now, what is the problem? There are disparities and there is a reality. Students are more likely to complete if they are in the urban areas as opposed to rural areas. Now we are now beginning to look at the dropouts. Okay, look at that. In the urban, even the makeshift arrangements we are talking about, there are some families that have got people who are coaching their children. They are advancing term by term. You are paying somebody and you have the curriculum. Some people have already closed classes. They even know they are only waiting for the announcement. Then they go and lobby with the school administration. They get admission. Some have actually skipped classes. I'm sure you remember when they were releasing results, you heard about the PLE. Some kids did so you can imagine. Now, when you look at the ones who attend, again, urban areas are better. And by urban, by the way, when you are in Lira, in northern Uganda, that is urban. But when you move out to the outskirts, then you become rural. So you can find even within the same district, the rate of attendance to school is higher where it is more urban. And the reasons are obvious. There's some more income, there's a bit of more of sensitization, the parents are a little bit more affluent. Now, when it comes to secondary education, again, there are really big variations, almost more than double of the kids go to secondary school if they are urban-based compared to those who are rural-based. When it comes to female male, again, females are hard hit. You have already heard how the pregnancies are affecting the girls much more than the boys. But there was one participant in the chat room who ably continued to say that even the boys are becoming young fathers and they are going to drop out because they have also participated in impregnating the girls. But I'm not sure how many of them will accept responsibility. I'm sure that's going to create some communal challenges along the way. Now, when we continue, this pandemic will definitely see many more people drop out if they are rural-based than if they are in cities or towns, and this is a major thing. But the largest part of our population is rural-based. This is where the dilemma is. Okay, so what does it mean? I've already said it was abrupt. There were no plans, whether countrywide, whether globally. Okay, we moved away from the traditional approaches. People are talking about online, about distance. During the first lockdown, somebody knocked at my door and he was distributing reading materials and even exercise books to children that they want them to be reading. Others conducted radio programs. You also know that while we are talking about students dropping out of school, do you know the crisis in the education institutions? You know how many of them who were operating on loans are now suffering, as already been mentioned by my other colleagues who are panelists here. Do you know the existing liabilities that are there, arrears, unpaid, whatever? So it's not only a crisis for the students, for the pupils, for continuity, but there's also another reality that is a mix that needs. What about the inconsistent payments and cash flows? The incapacity of guardians. Others have been very creative to try and move on. But still, the issue of pupil-student attrition, this is the dropout rates here. Some students will never come back to school. This is an issue. Some have applied for dead years. Others who are on dead years don't know what dead year now means. You know, you stay there. Even if a student was on a dead semester, well, you know, that some extension and staff, you know how many of your lecturers, teachers who have abandoned their actual professional duties. So this is something, and as a way of understanding this problem, I want to suggest something as I wind up. We need to know that COVID-19 affected everybody psychologically. For the students and the teachers, there's academics at stake. Then the socioeconomic issues. These are all issues that have to be considered when we draft an intervention plan for the people who have dropped out, and for us to design a plan that will bring them back on board. So this is something that you need to think about. The problem is bigger than being out of school. It is more psychological. There is a lot of emotional stress that is going on for both teachers, parents, and everybody. Others have actually lived on. They have become more creative. They have started things they've never done before. But for the young boys and girls, still education must remain in focus. We cannot actually advise that they should forget all about it. I know there are plans. Everybody's bringing their own suggestion. I'm just remaining hopeful that one time and very soon we'll be able to have some, at least whether it is staggered or whatever, but there is no option of not going back to school. That can't happen. Last but not least, what is the agenda of recovery back to school? Now, recovery is not about allowing students and pupils to come back to class. It's actually more than that. I mean, if you just say let's open, I'm sure you'll even get opposition from school owners, from teachers. They will even tell you they are not ready, even parents. So it's much more beyond reopening the gates and readmitting students. So what do we need to do? We need to do an engagement with the communities. We need the state and NGOs, government and non-government organizations to try and have targeted resources where they are most needed. Getting back to school, what does it mean? I'll give you an example. In KIU, we conducted online exams. Some students said, sorry, we don't have internet, we don't have smart gadgets, and then that was last semester. Others did their exams. So we said those who missed, no problem. Whenever we reopen, whenever government allows reopening, we will allow you in. So we did, for those who were able to do the exams, they celebrated. So they had to move to the subsequent semester. Before we knew, some of those who said they did not attempt the exams were now saying, excuse us, we are now ready. Can we do our exams? Oh, if we can't do our exams, can you allow us now to proceed? So there are some realities that face all of us. What do we do? It's going to widen the gap, but then we must do some interventional steps, like concentrating and focusing on how best we can remain safe. This is priority number one. But number two, invest in technology across the whole country. This is really something that has got to come straight by policymakers, by government implementation units, to think about how slowly we can actually get back into school, but also ensure that the divide, the differences between the haves and have-nots is filled. Recovering from learning losses. Some students will require a whole year to restart their interest in education. We also need to think about the institutional challenges, the digital technology opportunity. This is where we think the Ministry of ICT and all those that are coming to invest, to think about how to make like access to the internet, providing, I mean, we could actually provide affordable systems that can help us to actually leap again, try, and there are many suggestions that are coming, but of course, appropriate government policy will be a very important thing. So, take-home message for you, ladies and gentlemen, as you listen to me, we have to remain afloat. We cannot give up. We can't go into liquidity in terms of education. Financial liquidity is acceptable, but educational liquidity shouldn't occur. We need good and institutional leadership. And also, even at family level, if you are a father, you are a mother, you are a son, you are a daughter, be realistic. You have to be frugal in your expenditures. You have to be more creative. There are more learning materials available for you online. I know some may not have access, but those who can, please do something so that we reduce the percentage of the population that will go into that generation that may never catch up with the rest of us. retaining students and staff. This is something that is very interesting. Students have finished their senior six, they have finished other institutions of learning, they want to join university. We have got to become more acceptable. We have to create the opportunities. Integrating ICT, I've talked about that. We have to have strong governance. The student movement, the leadership of students in all institutions have to keep on the pressure to dialogue with institutions to see how they can help their colleagues who are actually at large. There is a proposal, ladies and gentlemen, very big proposal, that in this staggered arrangement, we should think about, for example, institutions allowing students, they could actually study online or in a blended format, but when it comes to exams, they all come on site. These are some of the suggestions that are now taking place. We hope maybe government will be able to approve them. Collaborative support, like now, those who are supporting this dialogue should be thinking about availing free reading materials, whether online, whether in print. I'll give you an example of one university in Tanzania, the Open University of Tanzania. For them, they just print material and to deliver. So we may need
to think about reorganizing our local governments so that they take part, they participate in
availing access to reading materials for all levels. So it involves a very high caliber organization that requires for us to be thinking. If you are
business administration, your institution can come
doing a Bachelor of Business together with other institutions, and we have materials prepared for you and modules delivered to you. If the internet is a big headache, but for those who can access the internet, then we are able to all have that equitable access. Take advantage of all this content. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much. This is a crisis, but then we shouldn't be in self-denial. We should have special task units that can help us to be looking at other disasters. This is just but one. Okay, we should do critical analysis of ourselves, of institutions, think about developing realistic intervention plans, and there is a need of increasing the number of counseling psychologists, health professionals, mental health professionals. This is where we have a bigger problem, so that we can avoid violence, we can avoid sense of crime, we can avoid all sorts of, reverting to drugs, especially for the youth. We have to make sure we address that more than thinking about just progression academically. There are social, psychosocial issues that are going to be following us, and these have been actually not given more attention. We are much more thinking about reopening without addressing or making proper plans to address the social, psychosocial effects of the pandemic. I thank you so much, and we pray to the Almighty God so that we are all protected against this, so that our education can continue. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to receiving any comments.
Thank you so much, Professor Mpeza, for that very incredible speech. Okay, so I ask that we give him another round of applause, please. He took a lot of time to draft that very, very informative slide. I hate listening to myself. Yeah, and I want to thank him so much for taking the time to be with us, but also for taking the time to give us all this information that is very vital for this campaign and also for this particular event. Now, as we come to the close of this session, I understand most of us are very tired. I empathize. And as we come to the close of this session, we are going to hear from Mr. David Nyaribi, who will be representing the manager Global Platforms, Mr. Primus Bahiji, who for some reason couldn't be with us, on the role of civil society organizations in the recovery of the educational sector in Uganda amidst COVID-19 and its effects. Is it a path well walked? So as he comes forward, I ask the people in the chat to please send in your questions, because as he finishes, we will respond to those questions and have our closing prayer at exactly 5 p.m. So I ask that we keep time and that we are able to finish this session as well as we started it. Mr. David, thank you.
Thank you very much, the moderators. As you have noticed, they are only ladies. ActionAid and the Global Platform believes in the feminist lens to give opportunities to both men and women in terms of competence. We don't ask men to become women or women to become men, but in terms of competence and in terms of opportunities, they should be availed to both. So we are happy to have the two ladies moderating today. Thank you very much. I want to begin by thanking the previous speakers. Of course, in the House, we have amazing people that have already spoken to us. While I was seated there, I was reminded of the time when President Obama went to Westminster, and he stated that the previous speakers had been one the Pope and the other the Queen, and so it was him to speak next, and he's asked whether it was a start of a funny joke. So me speaking after Honorable Doctor Professor is amazing. I must say that it is bringing me to another level. I am inspired, motivated, and empowered at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Nyaribi. I am also known as the Ambassador of Possibilities because I always endeavor to speak, to inspire, motivate, and empower whenever I can. And it's my full-time work. But in terms of skills and job, I work with ActionAid International under the Global Platform, which is like the youth department for ActionAid. And I partly sit in Apache, but I'm also mobile because the Global Platform works in three ways. One is the physical space that we have in Apache, but also the mobile where we get the young people where they are, and then the online. And today we have done the mobile and the online. So I'm extremely happy to be here. I am wearing many coats and I can feel the weight. One is my own self as the Ambassador of Possibilities, but secondly, I'm privileged to represent. Okay. Thank you. I am representing the manager of the Global Platform, Mr. Primus Tukwase Bahiji, who really wanted to be with us, but because of some other engagements that he's managing, the National Youth Parliament is soon happening and he's mobilizing and organizing for that as well. But I was also, we were supposed to have the country director here with us, Mr. Xavier Ejoi, but he couldn't make it as well. So I am to represent, but of course I have not carried a speech from him or from Primus, but I'm going to be talking about this topic because I also work with the organization. The topic that I am tackling, first of all, our broader theme is COVID-19 and education, a path to recovery. And I want to thank the Uganda Debate President's Council because they have had pre-national dialogue engagements in terms of debate, poems, and public speaking aspects that have happened before today. So thank you very much for that. And of course, the branding and the information that has been going on social media and other platforms. So that's our broader theme of COVID-19 and education, a path to recovery. And of course, in this house, we also have the leader of the entire campaign on education from ActionAid, Mr. Mulinde Kenneth. We're happy to have you. And the campaign is still ongoing. So my topic, but of course, the previous speakers have already done justice. So my work is simple and I'm extremely happy about it. The role of civil society organizations in the recovery of the educational sector in Uganda amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Whenever you hear the word recovery, you should begin to think and know that there is something that has been lost. And Honorable Alice Araso painted a very good picture that whereas we have lost something now, we were already doing badly. So on the integer line, we were maybe at zero, but now we are in negatives. And Professor Muhammad has said that we now need to be urgent in our action and in our movement. And certainly the civil society has a critical and a pivotal role to play. And what I'm going to say, civil society, like we already know, ActionAid and other organizations in this country, when you talk about civil society, you talk about non-state and not-for-profit actors that are moving towards a shared goal and interests and supporting government in bettering communities and making the country and society better. So the civil society has already been doing great work and touching many areas, not only education, but many areas, but of course education as well. So what is their role when there is a crisis, when there is a pandemic, when we have lost? My call and maybe my presentation is hinged on amplifying what they have been doing. But when we talk about civil society today, the civil society is faced with two challenges that many of you, of course, I know Dr. Honorable Alice, my brother from NUP, and all the panelists, including my brother, the advocate now, Matanda here, we know that the civil society in Uganda is facing many challenges, but broadly two. One is the shrinking civic space. But secondly, we know that most of the civil society organizations are donor supported. There is also shrinking donor support due to the pandemic and the challenges that have come with the pandemic. So as we talk about the role of civil society, we must put that at the back of our minds. So I would start by saying the civil society needs actually to unite and collaborate more. It was beautiful to watch in the last month when 54 civil society organizations were abruptly closed because of one issue or another. But again, at some point, the National NGO Forum, plus the country director of ActionAid, plus some other actors, went to see the minister, Honorable Kahindo Tafire, to talk about what is the challenge, what is happening, how can we support these organizations to reoperate? Because there is a lot of work that is happening, most especially for the education sector. As we speak, we are not certain whether DGF will operate or not operate, but certainly, like my brother from NUP say that when we have the opportunity, we can also call out that some of this should be done. So we call out that DGF should be allowed to operate because even government also benefits from this. So civil society has several approaches. There is the welfare approach, where if people are in a challenge, in a crisis, you give them handouts, you support in terms of bed nets, food, and so on. But also there is the participatory approach, where there is cost sharing. Maybe if it is a school, we have those that are giving iron sheets, and then the community is providing bricks. But there's also the human rights-based approach, where we are engaging duty bearers and the rights holders to demand for what is due for them. And that is the kind of approach that ActionAid mainly takes, to remind the citizens, to awaken the citizens. So the role of the civil society in this pandemic really is to awaken the citizens more. That's why I talked about amplification. We need to amplify the work within the civil society. The civil society, of course, carries out advocacy. Actually, these are front runners for advocacy. So we must use these advocacy spaces to call first for the opening of schools. Every speaker today has spoken and said there is no justifiable reason why schools are closed. Actually, personally, I've been to Kenya and Rwanda, but I see that the Ugandan, with the challenges that we have, we are slightly more organized than the Kenyan system. And we have had many of our Kenyan brothers and sisters come to study here, most especially in the A-level section, Senior 5 and Senior 6. But like Honorable Alice also said, Kenya is alive and well in terms of education. I was speaking to my niece on Wednesday who studies in Kenya, and she's studying in the University of Nairobi, and they are physically interfacing with professors and lecturers. So civil society should amplify and advocate for the opening of schools. Civil society plays a role of sensitization. Dr. Livingston Sewanya spoke about loss of appetite from the students and pupils to go to school. Now there is more work for the civil society that works within the communities directly to re-appetize the whole process of education, to paint the fruits, to paint the advantages that will come with young people going to school and studying, just like the professor has also said. Research research, and again I say research. Civil society helps quite a lot with research. As we talk about the many girls that have gotten pregnant within this pandemic, how many are they? Where are they? What are the real, when you use the problem-free analysis, what are the root causes of these pregnancies? Is it just being idle? Is it income-driven, that people are at the margin of starving, and they can, if getting pregnant can help you live another day, perhaps that's what you're going to do? So we research, and Dr. Livingston certainly has led on many researches when it comes to the issues of human rights. But of course, we have civil society organizations that directly fund. Professor Muhammad was talking about targeted funding. So, whereas there is a challenge still of donor support, but creatively and innovatively, the civil society must continue funding. There are some organizations that have child sponsorship. Child sponsorship, where students and pupils are directly supported to be in school. So we need this to continue and to be amplified, because, like we have said, in the integer we are below 0. 0 is better than -1, but we are now perhaps in -5. Then of course engaging, I'll finish with this because the previous speakers really simplified my work. The aspect of accountability. Accountability. Accountability, accountability, accountability. We already have challenges. The government over the day was able to receive money from the World Bank, from IMF. We are receiving money from everywhere. And it's okay. I am a political economist. I've studied economics and politics, so I know if we manage borrowing very well, we can actually benefit from it. Most of the rich people that we see in the world at some point have borrowed. But if you do not know how to manage what you have borrowed, you actually end up worse off than when you borrowed. So we must, as civil society organizations, and one of the reasons why the civil society organizations are closed or they are refused from operating is because of the issue of accountability. When we begin to follow the money, if you allocate that this is money for putting up special beds for COVID-19, this is money to support online learning, this is money to buy radios and television sets, and after 6 months the TVs have not come, the radios have not come, we ask the hard questions. And that's why sometimes we get challenges. But these are positive challenges. We should embrace them and move forward. So I call upon the civil society organizations. Our role that we play is critical. Yes, we are having challenges of shrinking civic space, challenges of shrinking donor support, but certainly we must creatively, like Honorable said, creatively and innovatively see how to amplify our work. Because if the civil society organization and civic space completely shuts down, from -5 perhaps we shall go to -10. And the Honorable gave a projection that a small handle we need 5 or 10 years. I think then we need 50 years, or 40 years, which is scripture and which is very prophetic. So the civil society organization plays all these roles, and certainly they should amplify them. Otherwise, the roles have always been played and they should continue. So we urge government to work, to collaboratively work with the civil society organizations, certainly because where there are gaps, the civil society helps to partly fill, sometimes fully fill, but sometimes partly fill the gaps and work together, because we are all working to make a better Uganda, to make a better East Africa, and ultimately to make Africa better. Once again, I want to thank the speakers that spoke before me for the insights and for the good information that they gave us, and the hope, because at the end of the day, it is hope that keeps us alive and keeps us moving, and together we can build Uganda, and together we can make Africa better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. David, for your deliberations. Let us give him a round of flowers. His speech was a nice one. I would want to add, but because he had to expound on almost all the issues that I would have added on, so for that fact, I will not add anything. So allow me take this time to welcome the leader of the Youth League, for ANT, Honorable Abubakar Matanda, to give us or say something in 5 minutes. And then after him, we will be going into our question session. You're most welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I actually did not expect to get an opportunity to speak because like David said, what do you say after what has been said? I think as a youth leader in a political party, as a lawyer, I attend so many gatherings of this nature, but I must confess that this may perhaps be the most all-round dialogue I've attended on education. And so I want to, mine may not be so much about comments, but maybe first of all thanking the council for taking the lead. Once I'm the present, I tell you, I've actually seen Professor as my vice chancellor at the time. I'm very proud of you because you have always called on students and told them that yours is not just to go to the lecture room. You must aim at shaping national policy, and to see a conversation like this happening, convened by students, for me it's inspiring. I'm going to have a very good sleep tonight. So keep at it. Like I've said, the conversation has been all around. And so maybe I will use my opportunity to just extend some of the things that have been shared, about 3. Number 1, when I was following Professor's presentation, I realized that, of course, it was also all-encompassing, but there's something I wanted to emphasize. When I look at our education system, I'm not an educationist myself, I'm a lawyer, but I'm so much interested in literacy and education. And there's one observation I made, and the experts here can help me reflect on this. Maybe someone said never waste a crisis. Maybe we can use this to reshape some of these things. I realized that in Uganda, the structure of our education system in such a way that we all study to go to university. My little research on education reveals that when we build this system, not everyone is supposed to go to university. A university is a place of becoming an expert in an area and adding knowledge, and this is why we write a thesis at the bachelor's degree. I know that many of us, at my later when I did my master's, I was embarrassed. I wish I could go to the Islamic University and withdraw that undergraduate thesis that I wrote. And I know that this is so for many people, because really there's a lot of pretense that we do. Because at that level we are expected to be adding new knowledge. But before we even get to adding new knowledge, I think that we could restructure our education system in such a way that before we get to that level of adding new knowledge, there is some diversion we do, especially around this. So I'm speaking to another association that we could reduce on some of the content we give to our learners and react it. So for example, my young brother finished his senior 4, he refused to go to O-level, and my parents were mad, but I supported him, and he diverted to go and do a certificate in software engineering. As we speak now, whereas his colleagues who went to S5 are stuck, my young brother is designing websites and doing amazing things. He's actually partly very independent now. Something that I think his colleagues will take like 5, 6, or 7 years to catch up. And so I want to invite this forum to be thinking that possibly we need to rework our structure that Dr. showed us to introduce, I may not use very technical terms, but to introduce practical skills very early, maybe after senior 4. And then from that, I'm happy for my young brother later. After he has worked with his certificate and diploma, I'm sure later when he goes for the bachelor's, he will actually be in position to write a thesis that can introduce new knowledge. And so I'm making the case against A-level, if you realize. So I invite us to think about it. Maybe this pandemic now should push us towards thinking about that things. Secondly, and lastly, when I was also president, part of what we pushed for was the student loan scheme. It ended in tears. The student loan scheme as is now is not what we advocated for. We looked at the statistics of the dropout rates. You track a learner from P1, go for them at P7, and 3/3 are gone. Go to H4, by the time you reach university, it is normal for the number to keep reducing. But ours reduces at a very, should I say, miraculous? People just disappear. And so we did an investigation as student leaders and where is the biggest contributor? Financing, higher education financing. So we pushed for the loan and the Honorable was in Parliament. So they brought the loan scheme. Now our government, I think a question of setting priorities, allocates a mere 5 billion to the loan scheme which we thought was going to revolutionize education by enabling students across the country to access higher education. So because 5 billion was such a joke, the board sat and said, you know what? First, let's get angry for sciences. We just, I remember I went to prison for my first time in life after that announcement because we were so angered that we had done so much to advocate for the loan scheme that was going that way. When we talk of sciences, important as they are, that's not where the majority of our learners are. And it has more to do with the systemic challenges than just their own competences. So I would think that as part of our recovery plan, part of what we can do, the monies that David is asking for accountability for, should actually go to that loan scheme to enable, like temporary, so it's not just about opening. We have to think all around and see where we have opening, but are people even still able to go back to school, or they have gone under? I can tell you that they have gone under. And one of the ways you can is a stimulus of that nature to bring them back to the fold. So now, like I said, it is mostly appreciation, and I hope that the conversation we have had and the recommendations you have made, we're going to have very serious prayers in these conversations, but I hope that you're able to project them to even other stakeholders. I don't know how we can amplify this conversation. I think what just happened here this evening is some sort of revolution. I see that it's recorded. I don't know how we can, send it out there as a call to all stakeholders to play their part. I remain Matanda Doka, still bring you greetings from the Alliance for National Transformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abubakar. Another round of applause, please. Once again, thank you very much for being patient, for those who are attending with us virtually, and for those who are joining us remotely. I want to thank you so much for being patient, and for listening again, and for engaging as much as we can on this issue. Now, already look some of the comments that have been sent in the chat during this conversation. As you can now see, we've had it both virtually and physically. So there are so many people who have had so much interactions in the chat as the session was going on. Someone says, from Ngazan Bernard, who says exactly my point. No one talks about the boys. Relating the boys has been one that has been really viral in the chat room. And then another person who also lives in the gallery, says parenthood has really failed. Imagine some girls being defiled by their parents. Jerome says even we boys are defiled by some of the little girls. I don't know how true that is. And then Agama says honestly COVID has posed a strong challenge. All men are pregnant in girls of 10 years, infecting them with STDs.
Microphone. Small one.